Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. So, you've seen the July one, hopefully. If not, but this is talking about the 10-ish, it's always around that. I have trouble like focusing sometimes on 10-ish games, crowdfunding wise, of quarter trace of 2021 that you should be aware of. Now, I've covered the ones in July, so there's just a little bit of a recap there. If you want more in July, that's where that video link above is going to tell you a little bit more about that. But let's focus on not only July, but July, August, and September. And again, we know about July pretty heavily on GameFound. We know one or two past that. So this is going to be a lot of Kickstarter, but I wouldn't be surprised between now and the time this video launches and we hit the beginning of August, the beginning of September, that a few other things pop up expected/unexpectedly as well. So this is the stuff that has got my eye right now that I'm going, okay, these are the ones that are either going to get some eyeballs, they're going to make waves, or they're just looking really cool to me. So let's do this. Now, I'm going to give you a couple honorable mentions at the beginning, and so that's why it's a little bit of 10-ish. But, I'll try and keep it brief. Let's do this. Number 4 in the honorable mentions. That's right. We are doing 14 games on this list, folks, if you've done the math already in your head like I did. Number 4 is Black Rose Wars Rebirth. This is launching on August 24 from Ludus Magnus Studios. Now, I am not the biggest fan of some of the games they have put out. There has been errata. There have been just here and there issues. I was especially not a fan of the way they handled shipping on the first Black Rose Wars, which I was original backer of. And, they tried to just do the Golden Bell Studios thing. Hey, guys, just give us more money, otherwise you're not going to get your games. Or you may just be at the end of the line. We don't really know. And granted, they apologized, they redid things, and I give them credit for realizing their own fault, and they got people their games. And the Sator box was one of the biggest Kickstarter exclusive boxes that I have seen pledge-wise of any game. So there are people that really like this game. This is a rated 8.1 overall on Board Game Geek right now. What this is you basically get a class of wizards, magicians, sorcerers, whatever you want to call them, in this 1 to 4 player style game where you are deck building, resource management, take thatting each other in this order, this hexagonally modular board, and just going all at it with crazy spells. Now, if we head over to the Kickstarter page here, you can see, besides my pledge there, how much stuff is actually on this table. This is a big map. This is a lot of stuff. They hit 100 plus stretch goals, and you can see all of the stuff that was Kickstarter exclusive. And I think that was a little bit of the turnoff for people that did not get the Kickstarter in the first place, was there's just so much extra stuff, so many rooms, so many cards, so many classes that are just there. And you can see here is the listing of all of these stretch goals. Just massive amounts of stuff. Like I said, I wasn't kidding about this box size. So some of it you can see as exclusive, some of it's not. But it was just a lot of stuff. And the concern always, again, with this much stuff is how focused is it going to be? Now, the Rebirth page has little to no actual information on it right now. I put the link in the description below so you can check it out if you want. And maybe by the time this video goes live, they will have more information on here. But all it is talking about the little preview here and then the story of what's going on thematically in the lore, that the Lodge is basically destroyed and now you're rebuilding it 25 years later. In the core box of this, you have 6 different schools that you're choosing from, and you have anywhere from summoning creatures to help you, to just raining destruction, to time manipulation, to just everything across the board that you want to do. But unlike a lot of other skirmish games, this is, as I have heard, a much longer game than you would expect. Sometimes if you have 3 or 4 players, this could take you a couple hours, as opposed to the half an hour to an hour that you would normally associate with a head-to-head take that, rain destruction, chaos, and ruin upon your opponent. There was also the complaint that, there was a little bit too much swinginess. Although it's a head-to-head take that, so, and a little bit too much luck in the drawing and some of the deck building that you're doing. But I guess the question is, what's going to be different? Is this going to be like Arcadia Quest Inferno to Arcadia Quest? Is this going to be something completely different? What is going to be there? If you go over to the Board Game Geek forums, they talk about the fact that they know that there are going to be 4 new schools announced. The tiles are going to start on a damaged side since the lodge has been destroyed, and there's going to be different effects depending on which side of the tile it's on, destroyed or rebuilt. So, I mean, again, what is this going to look like? Is it going to be focused? Now, the production has never been an issue, or the actual miniatures, the components, but the focus on something like this to balance and to keep it streamlined, I think is going to be the challenge, and whether or not people are going to back this one as successfully as they did the first one, because the first one raised, what? $1.3 million. So we will see what that looks like after it launches. Next up is Dragonbond Lords of Vaala. Now, this one flew under the radar until this past week when Draco Studios all of a sudden sent out a big PR email to a lot of content creators and said, hey, here's our game. And so I've been checking it out a little bit, and you can see the artwork looks great. Now, what is this game actually? It is a 1 to 4 player, almost like a skirmish game it looks like, but it's a little bit of action programming in the sense that you have a general and you have dragons. And the dragons and the generals have different abilities, and they have the ability to bond, hence the name in the first place, to get different powers. And you have each of them with a unique deck of abilities in the first place that you are going to be managing. Now, I don't know if it's a little bit of area control, as the map may suggest. It looks like you might be also be fighting monsters based on the miniatures you can see here, but we're going to see what it actually entails when we get closer. There's going to be slow release of information, it appears. Now, this one is actually going to be launching on August 2, which is also a very popular week for a couple other big names that we'll get to later on this list. But we'll kind of see as more information trickles out, how does this compare? What is going to make this one unique? And how heavy should we be investing or looking at it in terms of attention right now? So, less than a month away, we'll soon see. Next up, launching sometime in August, I don't have an exact date yet, it is Beast. This is a 2 to 4 player asymmetrical hidden movement style game where one person or more than one person are the people and the other person is said beast. Now, obviously, in a game like this, it is as the title and the description would suggest. It is one versus the other. First one to take the other side down is going to win. And it has this very interesting map that you can kind of see here in terms of locations. Obviously, there's some iconography, and there's a couple different things going on in general. If you look closely along the side, you can see that there's a night phase, there's a day phase, you can summon things, there's going to be movement. It's going to be very intricate. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, I have not played hardly any hidden movement style game. I can't tell you then, obviously, how this is exactly going to compare from a mechanism standpoint or just with the thematic incorporation from something like Spectre Ops, Scotland Yard, Fury of Dracula, any of those types of games. But it is a different spin on things, it's a different theme, and so I think it's going to be very intriguing. And we're just going to have to kind of see when it gets closer to that point. So it'll be really interesting to see what the price point is on something like this. And obviously from this picture, they're doing standees. Are we going to see full-blown minis? I know that they have been making the rounds to like videos and reviewers, even as recently as like a couple of months ago. So I don't know where things are at, but this is also one where I expect to see probably plenty of content prior or at the time of launch. So if hidden movement, you know, one side versus the other is your ilk or is have heavy interest to you, especially with this theme, there will be enough information out there to digest. So check it out sometime in the launch of August. I talked about this one before. Garphill Games, Shem Phillips, the latest big box expansion from them, Architects of the West Kingdom, the Works of Wonder expansion, where you're going to be adding a sideboard trying to complete one of the 5 Works of Wonder that you have the ability to develop. New solo system to go against up to 6 different AI opponents, and then just, you know, hopefully more of the good thing that all of the people love about Architects of the West Kingdom in the first place. Again, totally outside my interest, totally outside my comfort zone, but highly rated, going to be highly anticipated. regardless. So that's why it's honorable mention number 1. And if you're paying attention closely, I am counting down. So I am going in order of my personal preferences. So 10 going to be the next one up, and then 1 is going to be my most anticipated of quarter 3. So let's get on to the list, right? Number 10. Segueing perfectly into another game that is completely, utterly, obviously outside of my comfort zone is the On Mars expansion, the semi-cooperative version of Alien Invasion. And this is going to be interesting because it's offering 4 separate modules, each with different modes. 1, a solo mode, 2, a 1 versus all mode, and then 2 other modules as cooperative modes. I'm going to guess that they're going to bundle them all together. I'd be shocked if you could buy part of it and not get all of it, but you know what? Who knows? I have no idea. Eagle Griffin Games has obviously got a playbook that they're going to go by, and so we'll see when it launches. It's on July 15, so we'll just, wait and see. But, On Mars is super well thought of as one of Vital Lacerda's best games, arguably. I don't really know personally. I only see positive things in regards to this from people who really enjoy this side of things when I'm perusing, Board Game Geek, the rankings, social media. So, obviously the people are going to probably not shout from the treetops that they hate it if they hate it. But again, consistency-wise, ranking-wise, there is something to be said because it's doing better than his other games, which, he has a relatively strong pedigree to begin with. So it'll be interesting to see how well this is received. You can see a little bit of the setup in terms of the different modules. And so, I'm guessing that this might be very similar to what you see is what you get sort of thing. Now, this picture is actually labeled Chapter 1. Just cool bunch of stuff. Here's Chapter 2, it looks like, Chapter 3, and Chapter 4. So it looks like they are separate modules. So the fact that there is not a lot of duplication between the modules maybe makes me think that they could potentially separate them out and sell them individually. Now, from a marketing, from a business side of things, is that the best thing? I have no idea. That's well outside my depth, but smarter ideas and minds are going to take that over. So we'll see what happens when it launches on July 15. Now, number 9, you may be wondering why I have a picture of Veiled Fate, one of the more innovative and interesting social deduction style of games with a more tactical nature of the last several years. That's because IV Games, I believe they are the makers of this, and I believe they are putting out another game sometime in the near future, in August maybe, of a game called Mythic Mischief. There isn't even an entry yet for Mythic Mischief. Try saying that 10 times fast. That's a tongue twister. In Board Game Geek yet, so that's why I'm going with Veiled Fate. So it's going to be interesting to see what this entails. Again, very little information. I'm intrigued to see what they can do. Moonrakers, Veiled Fate. It's got a good pedigree to start out with, so I have to imagine that even knowing very little about this so far, it's going to be really interesting to see when they launch it on August 31. Anticipate seeing some heavy social media presence for the several weeks prior to that. So check it out if you're interested somewhere. I'll throw a comment below if I can find one. Okay. So now we have number 8. This is Mythwind. Now this is going to be a really interesting test of the market because this is a 1 to 2 player game, and that's the key feature of Mythwind that I really think cannot be overstated or overlooked. It is an open world progression RPG, whimsical fantasy-esque game that is taking more of the emphasis on exploring and resource gathering and crafting, a la more of your Stardew Valley-esque or your Animal Crossing-esque, rather than the traditional hack/level up style of things. This is also where the interesting aspect comes in. You take your pioneer as someone trying to establish this new community, and depending on what role you want to take, the actions that you are taking, the mechanisms of the game itself will vary. You may be doing deck building. You may be doing worker placement. It says flat out, roles are 100% asymmetrical. There is a Facebook group that has been dedicated to this game for quite some time with a lot of information about the various classes and professions that you can be. Not heroes, paladins, mages, rogues, but like builders, smiths, crafters, that sort of thing. It is going to be creating a persistent RPG-esque world that you can set up, it says, in 5 minutes, and will save your progress as you go. So all in all, I mean, this is the style of things. This is one of 3 games, the first of 3 games on this list of this similar ilk. And as we have seen the Gloomhaven, KDM-esque style of things, now we are seeing more of the Stardew Valley Animal Crossing side of things. And again, how is the market going to react? That's why this is so intriguing. Now, the interesting thing, this one compared to the other 2 on this list, this one is only 1 to 2 player. So, how is that going to change the dynamic, and how is it going to change the cash? If you're interested, you're going to have to wait a little while because this one isn't actually launching until September 13. But I will link the Facebook group down in the description below. So if you're really intrigued and want to check this out, there's a lot more information over there. Now, I originally covered this one, number 7, Agemonia, at the very beginning of the year as one of the games I thought was going to be originally launching in January, and then it just got pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. But now we finally have a date, September 7, when Agemonia is going to be live on Kickstarter. So what is Agemonia? As I just mentioned, it is more in the opposite style than the Mythwind-esque that I just talked about. This is a 1 to 4 player, story-driven, campaign style. Again, a little bit of an open world, 1 to 4 player game where your actions are and your choices are going to have consequences. There are going to be branching paths even within each scenario where you're not going to have time to necessarily do everything in a given map or scenario because ramifications are going to be immediate. It is very much story driven with action and ability checks along the way. This is fully developed as an RPG world by the designer who has been doing something along these lines for years in development. You can see a little bit here. I believe this is one of the online tabletop simulator or Tabletopia modules because I believe the first 3 scenarios are actually up there. I know the first 2 were up for a long time, and so I was able to read through those because those were also linked on Board Game Geek. And it's very unique. It's branching in terms of what happens. So, for example, I believe the first one here, just as a slight spoiler, is where this inn is getting flooded. And you're having to choose, okay, well, am I going to go over here? Am I going to go over here? Am I going to go on the first floor? Am I going to go on the second floor? What am I going to save? Who am I going to rescue? You know, and you're making decisions and you only have a limited amount of time to do it. And if you just don't do something, it's not something you can go back to. So it's taking that sort of storytelling and throwing it in a mystical, magical blanket and telling a tale of heroes versus villains. If that intrigues you, if that really thrills you, you need to check this one out when it launches on September 7th. Number 6 should not surprise you at this point. It was also on my previous video of July, launching on July 20, Chronicles Drunagor, the Age of Darkness Apocalypse expansion. This is adding 16 more missions or sessions onto the end of the first campaign because you need to finish the quest and the story to beat the villain. This is taking sort of your D20-esque multi-skill, straightforward but also variable dungeon crawl theme with 3D terrain and just making it all the more beautiful. Now again, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this. The first one, although it kind of flew under the radar, was very well received now and is very hard to find on the secondary market. For a dungeon crawl, comparatively, I mean, yes, they raised over $500,000, but the question is going to be now porting onto GameFound, what is it going to look like? Is it going to attract the same amount of eyes? And how much is the price point going to change? Because I believe they're doing a reprint plus. So it's not just the new stuff, because I think you need the base game to be able to play this expansion. It's not a standalone expansion. Pledge levels last time, let's take a look here, just out of curiosity. You have the base pledge of $100, $170, $232 for the Black Friday deal, and the all-in for $269. Now again, you're getting some of the other stuff, create your own dungeon trays, player bundles, 5 custom D20s. So again, that's not an all-in gameplay. Looks like this one is more of the all-in gameplay at $232. So where is that going to put us with the expansion? If you're not following and you have any interest, you probably should click follow because you'll get this free miniature little expansion boss. And they're already, this is the other interesting thing, the other big difference between GameFound and Kickstarter. If you are following this, they can put out updates that are going to go to followers before the campaign is even started, and they've already had one update out in case you're interested. So there's going to be, I'm sure, at least one between now and then as well. And we're just going to see what else is out there. I mean, there's a ton of information already in terms of what was previous, what is there now new. 16 adventures, new mechanics, new level structure, new mythology, new bosses. They've got the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse that they're going after. You've got some new classes, you've got some new AI, you've got new everything on here. And so the question just is, how is it going to look? What is the price point going to be? And does the GameFound effect have a positive or a negative? I mean, I love seeing all this information out beforehand. I think it helps build excitement for your product, but I still have questions about GameFound's eyes versus Kickstarter's eyes, not from people within the hobby, but people without the hobby. People that are coming in from a secondary standpoint. So I think that is going to be the big test, and I think we still won't know until maybe even the end of 2021 as a side tangent talking about this since we're talking about GameFound. But I think it's going to be really exciting. I think it's going to be great to see what else they put out there. And I mean, it's going to be expensive. It just is. So they've already got stuff up. Alex already has the Apocalypse video on here as well. So again, there's not going to be a dearth of information. And so it's going to be really cool to see just what's new. Why get this now? How does it compare? All of that stuff. Awesome 164 millimeter miniatures, which is, again, falling out of the miniature zone, right? As we talked about that previous Cthulhu Death May Die massivature, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, that is Chronicles of Drunagor, the Age of Apocalypse Darkness campaign. Check it out when it launches on July 20 on GameFound. Number 5, also staying over on GameFound at this point, this is Portal Games' 11, the football manager style board game. And I was just watching the Euro 2021 Cup, and my 5-year-old just, for whatever reason, he can just focus in on this. Like, I am shocked and amazed, and I love watching it because he's so interested too. Because it's honestly probably my favorite sport to watch at this high of level, because let's be honest, MLS is just not the same. It's not anywhere near that. It's not anywhere near as exciting. I wish I could get the Premier League a lot easier over here without having to pay for some massive subscription service. Anyway, total side tangent. But this is Portal Games' take on the economic strategy side of things in the world of sports, where you are going to not only be managing through various scenarios the team itself and how they're playing and whether or not they're winning or losing, but the economic and the background side of things between the games over a season in certain scenarios that you will find yourselves in terms of certain predicaments. And it's just going to be really interesting to see how this actually works. I would love to be able to. I have a message out to Portal. I'm not sure what it's going to look like yet. I mean, they're still over 2 months out, so they're probably figuring this out too. But this is one that I'm going to be watching very closely because I don't have a lot of games like this. And sometimes I don't feel like playing the heavy fantasy dungeon crawl-esque things. You know, sometimes I feel like playing something else. With my own personal interest in football now, I kind of want to see what this is going to look like. There's not a whole lot of other information on the page, except for the fact that if you follow, you get some starting promos for free, and it just kind of runs you through everything that I said in terms of managing the resources, transferring, planning match tactics. So you're doing more than just the usual, you know, I'm going to just try and score on you, you're going to try and score on me. It's not just an actual football game. And so that's what's really cool about this. So that's why it's number 5 on my list. If you're interested, definitely have it on your radar. It's farther out than some of the other stuff, but keep your eye on it because, I mean, might not want to miss it either. That is 11, the Football Manager. Number 4, again, going back to that open world campaign style legacy-esque game. This is self-titled a Green Legacy game, and that is Arydia, The Paths We Dare Tread. And this is taking the 4 pillars, as it calls them: exploration, combat, progression, and role-playing, and wraps it in a bundle and puts it on your tabletop. Each location is unique. not random. Actions have consequences. Open world. Find ruins. Explore lost ruins. Find terrifying monsters. Loot forbidden tombs. The game keeps track of where you are at. NPCs will change. Locations and events will change depending on how you interact with them. There's a tactical combat system. Don't think this one is like Mythwind. You are going to have to fight things. Things are going to be hostile to you. It makes that very clear from the get-go. This is also a 1 to 4 player game, which also makes it significantly different from Mythwind. It also describes an incentive-based role-playing system, which is going to, incentivize you to be your character in some way. So that, again, is very interesting. Now, you heard me mention that keyword at the beginning, right? Legacy game. Green legacy game. And what they're doing is they're saying, and they're marketing this as unlike other campaign games where, you're adding things, you're opening envelopes, you're changing things, you're modifying things, and then, whether it's your pandemics or your zombie kids or teens, you can't reset it. They're saying you have the ability to reset this when you are done. And so again, from that side of things and all of those descriptions, you can now see why this is so high up on my list of games. This is going head to head with things on August 3 when it launches. What other things? Well, one of those other things is in one of the 3 final spots on this list. But it's not the next one, though. The next one is actually Soul Raiders from Marc Andre. This is launching on July 7, and this is going to have eyes on it because this is a streamlined storytelling game. Again, more of an actions have consequences combat, but staying heavier on the narrative side of things in terms of exploration, in terms of being able to go different directions even in the same party at the same time, and really focusing on that element as opposed to the other side of things in the combat, which a lot of these games otherwise typically focus on. And so I guess that seems to be more of the trend in this list, that we are seeing the non-typical path on a lot of these fantasy-esque games. Instead of bash, 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 smash, 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 and there's nothing wrong with that, and some of them are on this because I like that, we're now seeing a further branching of what can be offered as a possibility in that theme. Here you can see, again, the streamlined cards in terms of combat, tactical decision makings, and ability checks. This is not going to be like trying to figure out 7 different, abilities, traits, or aspects on a card to be able to figure out what's going to happen in a battle. Here you can see just in the background as well, again, the varied things that you can do even on one single card of exploration and where you can go and how you can interact with them in the first place. That is why it is exciting at this point, because it wraps that fantasy element of things with you as a soul raider protecting the realm from evil souls that are trying to come back and disturb it, destroy it, or conquer. And with the heavy storytelling, the branching points, I'm going to imagine it's going to be really intriguing. It says it's going to be in stories or chapters of stories, and there is going to be sort of a progression through those chapters, even in a falling forward situation where the only detriment is if you fail at the very end of the chapters, the very end of whatever narrative section it is, then you have to repeat it. If you fail the individual ones before that, there may be consequences, but you still progress, only if you fail that ending one. So again, it allows you different ways to get to that endpoint if you need to, or if you so choose, which again is really cool. So that is why it is number 3 on my list, launching on July 7th. Number 2, Lands of Galzyr, also launching on August 2nd. This is going head to head with Arydia, and this is scary because these games and these concepts, Arydia has been 3+ years in the making. I'm going to guess Lands of Galzyr has been probably near that as well in the background. And this is from Snowdale Design, who does one of my favorite deck building games, Dale of Merchants. And this is, again, storytelling, story-driven, open world, save mechanism games with really cute looking animals. So taking again the fantasy theme and putting a twist on it, making it different than the other two we've already talked about on this list that are doing similar concepts and even executions, you could argue. Again, here you can see a little bit of what it is. 1 to 4 players. It's going to be anywhere from an hour to 2.5 hours. And again, open world, save mechanism, dice rolling, resource gathering adventures. Skills, one of 6 different skills that you're going to be using. Endless stories, a book of adventure. And now this is where some people have already expressed a little bit of discontent because some people really do not like app or website driven, even downloadable completely games. And you know what? I trust them in terms of the previous games that they've put out. And with how this looks and with how it's going to be, it reminds me more of like the Role Player Adventures-esque rather than anything else, just by surface value alone. And so I'm really excited about what it's going to look like. This is, I mean, again, it's checking all those boxes of the mechanisms and the actions and the intuitive nature and the family even style game that I could love and see my kids getting into, that I could take, stop, start, continue journey on whenever we want to, whether that's a day apart, a month apart, 6 months apart. And so that's what I love, because this is something I could introduce very quickly with them. Now, again, not a ton of information. We still have about a month left. We'll see, though, because, again, there's a lot of eyes on this one, too. Anticipation. Maybe not as much as Arydia, but at least for me, that's why it's number 2. Now, I'm going out on a limb here. Number 1 is Slay the Spire from Contention Games. And I'm going out on a limb because I would not usually do this without knowing more of what this is going to entail, because there is next to no information on anything regarding this game. There is no Board Game Geek entry. There is no preview Kickstarter page that you can even sign up for notifications when I just search for it. All it says is from Contention Games, it's coming in the summer of 2021. Now, I think some of you even commented that there was an announced date in an email, like August or September. I honestly don't remember. But if this can port over any of the deck building craziness, chaos, fun in how you can craft unique systems, weapons, encounters that the app game did in the first place, so that as you climb this spire, you can finally achieve victory at the top by conquering it. The potential of that is why this is number 1. This is the potential. There are plenty of other things on this list that is, there's enough information out there that the ground, the floor of what the games may be is incredibly high, and the ceiling is also high. But with this, show me what you can do. Do something I haven't seen. Port this IP in a way that has never been done before. And if you can do that, then it's going to deserve the number 1 spot on this list. I just don't know. But I'm willing to put it on this list. I'm willing to throw it out there and see what it entails. I have not heard any things. I have not heard rumblings. I have not heard social media mentions. But I have to expect that unless this is changed, we're going to start to see stuff in the near future. I want to see more stuff. I want to be interested in it. I just want to know more. That is why Slay the Spire, with deck building being one of my favorite aspects, mechanically speaking, across all games, is number 1. Okay, that's it. That is the stuff I am most excited about. Now, there's plenty of other things that are notable that I just couldn't fit on this list. So if there's stuff elsewise that you're interested in, that you have your eye on, that you're going, okay, what are you thinking about? Or, hey, did you know about this one? Shoot me a comment in the comment section below. Which of these sounds the most interesting to you? I mean, again, we've got some heavy themes here. We've got some heavy themes here. We've got some Game Found. We've got some Kickstarter. How is that going to compare? What are things going to look like? There's a lot of cool stuff coming out. But again, it also involves this execution. No matter how good the concept is, it's also from a consumer side of things. Why am I getting this now? Why am I essentially ordering this on crowdfunding and not waiting for retail? And so that personally also plays into a lot of my decisions lately. And I have not backed a lot of things within the last 6 months of this year so far because of that reason in particular. because there's no incentive, or the incentive is not good enough for me to get it now. And I have plenty of other great games, so I'll just wait. Okay. Argue with me. Tell me I'm wrong. Let me know what I missed. As always, I appreciate it. Appreciate you taking the time to watch it. Hopefully this is interesting of quarter 3. Obviously, if I'm going to do quarter 3, there's going to be a quarter 4 too. So, we'll get there at the end of September. But in the meantime, hopefully this holds you over until then. If you liked what you saw, throw me a sub. Either way, though, thank you for watching in the first place. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Stay classy. Hopefully, see you around.